Welcome in, it's basketball by association. My name is Arky. Shea, that is Joel C. Cortez. Joel, what do you think of the new theme of the show?
And good night, everybody. I mean, well, you can't top that.
Oh, yeah.
You can't come in hot with the headliner stuff right away. Gotta warm people up to that.
That's true. My fault. Well, the headline stuff is at the end when just flipped tip of my tongue. Who is it that did the NBA on NBC theme? Very famous.
Oh, John Tesh.
Tesh, yeah. I got the John Tesh background with my my basketball by association.
And the copyright lawyers are circling over our head. They're out there.
They're fine. They're fine. They got much bigger fish to fry. Joel, glad to talk to you again as we get ready for the second half of the season, which is always my favorite part because it's literally never the second half of the season. It's the second, much smaller percentage of the season as we like to do it. In fact, I was playing NBA 2K19 the other night, and I noticed I was getting toward the All-Star game. By the way, my Knicks are 38-3. By the way, just want to let you know. It's a pretty good start.
I mean, that's a good record for playing on rookie.
Joel, you know what?
That's not bad.
I'm not even going to dignify that. My first year, I lost to the Thunder in the finals in 5 games. So okay. I had Kristaps Porzingis, and he got hurt in game 1 of the finals, and that was it. Because I don't know if you know the Knicks roster from about I think it's 2019. Not good. Yeah, not good.
I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah, but on my team now, I got like Terry Rozier and Buddy Hield and still J.R. Smith's kicking around. Derrick Rose is kicking around. So we're still going.
The good old days of Derrick Rose and J.R. Smith.
Yes.
And now Derrick Rose is back, I guess, too. So
he is. Thank you. He is. I wanted to mention a couple things. One is that we do have a brand new leader to start the second half of the season for favorite to become the MVP this season. It's basically been LeBron the whole time, and we've had our discussion before the season whether Luka would be the next guy or maybe Jokic. But Joel Embiid is now the betting favorite to win the regular season MVP award at plus 200. LeBron James is now second on that list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely okay with that. You've got a modern day NBA center averaging 30 points a game. Everybody's points at the top of the list seem to be a little bit inflated this year. We've got so many players hovering around 30 points, but still 30 points a game, 11 and a half boards, a block and a half. He's averaging 3 assists. His team, I think most importantly, has been first place in the East for, it seems like, the longest out of anybody who's had that top spot on the year. I think a lot of keeping that top spot, especially with the Nets hot on their heels, is going to have a lot to do with it. And I think LeBron bumping back a little is the reality that without Anthony Davis, the Lakers just don't look unbeatable. And as good as LeBron has been, people are kind of looking at that going, oh, yeah, how much of that really is Anthony Davis? Seems to be at least, 3 to 4 spots in the standings enough. And that tarnishes the MVP candidacy of LeBron a little bit. I don't even know if I would put him second in my own book, but I know those are the gambling odds.
Well, let me round out the top 6 for you then. Number 3, LeBron's 2. 3 is Jokic. 4 is Luka. 5 is Steph Curry. And Milwaukee's Giannis Antetokounmpo at plus 1,600 to repeat for the third time, being the MVP. So,
Jokic, Doncic, and Steph are all on teams that are hovering between the 6th and the 12th seed in the West. So I think a lot depends on where they rattle out here in the playoff picture for those guys.
I was going to mention that real quick, that Embiid and LeBron are the 2 dudes who are basically on winning teams or teams that are expected to be there at the end of the year. But there's some names on this list that right now, if they're going to win the MVP, they're going to like a 6th seed or something.
But and here's the thing: are we just giving up on Giannis's greatness already, or is it the fact that the Bucks aren't number 1 in the East? Because he's averaging 29 points a game, 10 boards, actually no, almost 12 boards a game, 6 assists, a steal, and a block and a half. His counting stats are actually slightly better than Embiid's and slightly better in a lot of ways than where they were last year. So how is he not the MVP again? Again, it may just be that they're not number one in the East.
No, I think that's something to do with it, but to also be, it would make more sense if he was like third on the list and not 6th, right? Based on how the team is. If you're basing just that they're not number one, I mean, they're not barely making the playoffs at this point. They're still a good basketball team. It's just,
And
right.
As you have liked to point out, and many have before this as well, and Giannis is down in rebounds and I guess down in points by half a point. As you've pointed out, the NBA likes to dish out MVPs for that first time rather liberally.
Yes.
It's a little harder to get the next one because they're looking for that next guy to reward for what they've done.
And that's why I thought Luka was going to be your MVP coming into this year. And listen, he's still good, but Joel Embiid has had a freaking great first half of the season. So it's just, I did not see that season coming from him this year. He's just been phenomenal.
Yeah, and the fact that the Sixers are finally kind of living up to the expectations we've had for them over the past couple seasons. Some of that has to do with the arrival of Doc Rivers. I think a lot of that has to do with a bench finally rounding out the way it's supposed to. And, Embiid and Simmons playing well off of each other too. So Embiid has been able to take it to that next level proverbially, and he deserves to be rewarded for that if they can hold on to this.
Yeah, he's plus 200. Giannis is plus 1,600. Luka, if you want him, plus 1,300 if you want to go on my preseason pick. And Joel, if you want to go ahead and play on the mods, we got to wait for you to do it thanks to a sponsor of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can get $1,000 as a deposit bonus, up to $1,000 with your first deposit bonus, thanks to DraftKings Sportsbook, and they are a wonderful partner of ours on the Brawl Network. You just go over to DraftKings Sportsbook account, you make your first deposit with your new account, and DraftKings matches 20% of your deposit amount up to $1,000 total for new customers only. You pick your favorite games or markets to bet on. You can pick your favorite players like Joel Embiid, and it doesn't just have to be basketball. They've got just about every sport you can imagine under the sun. And you follow the action, you win some money, and they're going to match some of that money for you. And of course, use this link, dkng.co/brawlbook. That's dkng.co/brawlbook for that DraftKings Sportsbook $1,000 deposit bonus.
Mr. Joel C. Cortez, we do have 14 Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame finalists.
Say that 5 times fast, but not on air. On air.
Not even in my free time. I mean, I don't care how much I win from DraftKings. I'm not doing that. Amongst those on this list are Paul Pierce, Chris Webber, Chris Bosh, Michael Cooper, Laura Jackson, Yolanda Griffith, Ben Wallace are among the finalists for this year's Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame class. It's the second.
And Rick Adelman as well, one of my favorite NBA coaches ever.
I was going to mention, I think he's top 10 in the NBA wins all time. Rick Adelman's on this list. Jay Wright for Villanova is on this list. And also Bill Russell is a finalist, but as a coach on this list. Interesting finalist list going. By the way, whoever makes the cut here,
Timmy Hardaway as well, getting in on the second ballot, and Chris Webber.
Yes,
previous finalists up for consideration.
So I guess let me just ask you if you had to pick, because here's what will happen. I think it's May that they actually do this, that they'll go into the same class, I believe, in the same ceremony, I should believe. They had Tim Duncan last year, Garnett and Kobe last year that were the ones who made it, but because of COVID, they had to postpone the 2020 enshrinement ceremony to this year. So it's going to be a loaded ceremony this year.
I mean, it was already one of the all-time greatest draft class going in. When you're talking KG, Kobe, and Duncan, that is an era-defining group. Like, that is the era. But yeah, to add a lot of really deserving names here is going to be a big celebration in a really cool way.
Yeah, and I don't even know where to sort of, I guess, stop on this list. But is it safe to say that we're looking at a Paul Pierce, Chris Bosh definite in?
I think Chris Bosh should be, because of multiple championships and many multiple appearances. Obviously, his career was also cut short because of health reasons. We don't know what else he could have added to that trophy case. Pierce, I don't know if he is a lock on the first ballot. He's kind of a fringe guy. He did go to a couple of finals. He did win a finals MVP. He did win a ring, although there's that case that it was with KG and with Ray Allen involved. So I don't know that he's a first ballot guy, except for the fact that he plays for the Boston Celtics.
Well, he is a 10-time All-Star. He's a second-time second all-time leading scorer for the Celtics, and maybe the single most important moment in Celtics history was him coming out of the tunnel and out of a wheelchair. That definitely was real, by the way. There was nothing but realness there.
Does he, there's so many names here, though, that are deserving. And does he have a greater case than Michael Cooper, who is a 5-time NBA champion? I'm not sure on that. Does he have a greater case? But
he was on the Showtime Lakers, though, right? Like, there's so many,
there's some good players out of that. Marcus Johnson is another one from the Bucks.
Hold on.
Yeah.
You literally just said there were some good players on the Showtime Lakers. Like, you're just gonna walk past the Showtime Lakers like that?
There are some rather decent basketball players that were on the Showtime Lakers, of which Michael Cooper was one. So that does play a part in the voting, I think, because were you the prime mover on one of these era-defining teams, or were you a guy that benefited from that? And Michael Cooper certainly had big moments. He was a part of it, but you can't make the case that he was a prime mover for those teams. And the same thing, I think, befalls Tim Hardaway, Ben Wallace, and Chris Webber as they come back on second ballots here. They're all, I think, deserving in their own way. Chris Webber, certainly for his collegiate career, and certainly for redefining, I think, what the power forward position could do. Tim Hardaway, the killer crossover, very iconic. Ben Wallace, won a ring and was a defensive wrecking ball, but had a very short prime when you think about it. So are those guys more deserving than Pierce? Probably not. But Pierce, I don't think, is a lock first ballot Hall of Famer, though I do think he'll get it anyway. Chris Bosh should be.
Let's take a more fun, interesting look at one of the guys. Let's look at Ben Wallace for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Wallace is I think a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year award winner. In fact, I think only he and Dikembe have been able to say that. You can't say he was an offensive threat because I think he averaged like 4 points a game or something. So that's off the table.
Mm-hmm.
But to be in that kind of air, and I don't think Defensive Player of the Year is one of these just random stats like he averaged a 20, 10, and 5 on rainy Sundays in April kind of thing.
He was also often near or at the top of the rebounding list in his prime, too, as the league's leading rebounder, or awfully close to it.
Yes, so he does have that title with Detroit also. Like, if he makes it, whether or not he makes it now or later, like, this is an interesting study as far as where we are at as far in the voting. Don't you think? Like, he's a very interesting case study to see if the voting will allow him to come in, whether it's now or in a couple of years or next year, because he really is one of the, like, he's literally like the defensive dude. Like that's all he does.
Yeah, you had, I think one of the qualifications for the Hall of Fame is, were you a game changer in some way for a longer than a flash in the pan period of time? And Ben Wallace, while he was in Detroit at his prime, was an absolute game-changing defensive player. You had to scheme around him. That was not true when he went to Chicago, as that dynasty fell apart in Detroit, that mini dynasty, and certainly not by the end of his career in Cleveland. And I think that tarnishes things a little bit, where you go, okay, he was really, really good, but how much of it was that scheme deployed by Larry Brown at their height? How much of that was being able to play with Rip and Chauncey and Sheed and Tayshaun Prince? There's that doubt that creeps in just a little bit with Ben Wallace. But at the same time, you cannot argue with the production and the results and all that stuff while he was at his prime. And so you talk about that as were they a game changer? Did they have some sort of era defining or game-defining thing that they brought to the NBA. And that's where you can go with Tim Hardaway and Chris Webber. And certainly, does longevity come in? Were they a part of multiple championships and played a key role? And that's where the Michael Cooper argument comes in. And Paul Pierce, it's a longevity of being really, really good and having a ring that comes into play. Paul Pierce doesn't really have like a defining move or a defining thing that he did where you're like, oh yeah, I remember the Paul Pierce era. It's more like, no, he was just always there as an all-star, a really good player, and he won a ring. So different arguments for different players, and that's what makes this a tough role for the voters.
Playoff wheelchair Paul. Come on now. Let's not.
I don't remember that as much as you do. Like
that was the moment. That was the moment. He was being carried off the floor. Although the rumor is he had diarrhea. But regardless, one of
the MASH helicopter came in and dropped him down, and
he's a legend for however he came back onto the court. Whether he just had to drop a couple of kids off at the pool, or if he actually was injured and miraculously healed. Joel, it's tournament season. You know that?
Mm-hmm.
It's tournament season in college basketball. It's tournament season when we get to the brackets in the pros. And you need to take care of your hair, Joel, and your holes. And Manscaped has the best tools for the job. This is their copy, not mine. We're talking about the sponsors, Manscaped, baby, the global leaders in male grooming from head to toe and the holes in between. When the clock winds down, be clutch and avoid the upset with Manscaped Performance Package that will be sure to keep all your hair and holes tamed. Start taking care of your man parts right now with a 20% off special plus free shipping by going to manscaped.com and using the promo code BRAWL, BRAWL. Your bracket isn't supposed to be perfect, but with the Manscaped Performance Package, you can be confident that your nose, ear, and ball pubes are. So manscaped.com, use the promo code BRAWL, BRAWL, and you can get the award-winning Lawnmower 3.0 that has the weed whacker ear and nose hair trimmer with it. Mm-hmm. Joel?
Thanks for putting up with us, ladies. We're grotesque.
It may not. Listen, you guys are the real MVP. That's true. Kevin Durant had it right. Kevin Durant's mom is the real MVP. Real quick, did you have a thought on Rick Adelman?
Rick Adelman should be in there coaching multiple teams. The Kings define an era, coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, as they were making the NBA Finals. His offenses have continued to trickle down. Everybody runs different variations of the Rick Adelman elbow sets even today. So I think those are his contributions. Yes, a guy who never won a ring, a guy who did have some bad teams at times, but more often than not, he was a playoff coach. And more often than not, when Rick Adelman arrived, your team got noticeably better. So absolutely, he's in. I'm of the mind, too, that, Bill Russell as a coach does have a championship. He did go to Seattle, had some success there as well. I'm of the mind that any award you can give to Bill Russell, you give him. Just as I'm of the mind that any award that goes to the female players who are nominated, they need more recognition for the huge contributions that they've made to the game, whether it's in the WNBA, high school, or college. For me, when a nomination comes in like that, you make it and you put that, without question on the first ballot and you pass it. But Bill Russell fits in there as well.
I think that it's actually true. I agree with you on Bill Russell there. One other thing I wanted to get to before we start the second half of the season and the second half of my love affair with Kyrie Irving is that we had a very interesting first half of the season and a second half in which vaccines at some point will be available for the players, and there will be more consistent play from some of these teams, especially because there will be fewer and fewer contract tracing teams being left out or players being left out because of that. Guys are ready to start getting on a roll, I think, and we have a very bunched up East and West right now where it literally could be a handful of teams that are not more, right? Seven teams, maybe in each that get home court for the for the first round of the playoffs. So Who do you look forward to most making a move or making some kind of noise one way or the other starting the second half? Because we're also, let's not forget, 2 weeks away from free agent period or the trade deadline, I should say.
So you're talking about who might be most active in adding some reinforcements here?
Well, that could be it. Like, I want to know, who do you think is going to be busy, whether it's making moves or making moves in the standings making moves in the standings or making moves with their roster. Who do you expect the most of in this second half of the season?
Brooklyn's not done, even with Blake Griffin having recently arrived. So there is an arms race going on there. They're already so loaded at the top. Now you look at, can Philadelphia and Milwaukee attract anybody at this point, or is Brooklyn the destination to go to in the Eastern Conference, in which case everybody might be playing for second place over there? I think Boston is desperate to make a move, but Danny Ainge, we've talked about before, is a classic talk guy when it comes to the deadline, and we haven't actually seen much happen there. I'm really wondering whether Indiana and Atlanta are going to move up in the standings. Those are teams that should be making the playoffs. There's something wrong if they don't. Is somebody like Charlotte or New York just happy to be there right now, or can they actually hold on? They might be moving in the wrong direction. Those, I think, are the weak links potentially about losing a playoff spot in the East. In the Western Conference, are the Utah Jazz and the Phoenix Suns really, truly the top two teams in the West? Are they that good, or are they moving in the wrong direction at some point when things start to catch up? The Lakers and the Clippers are not that far behind, and those were the front runners. I look at Golden State, finally, presumably healthy. Kelly Oubre is able to hit the broadside of a barn. There's the rumors that they want Victor Oladipo. How they will get him, I have no idea. But I do see Golden State as a team that may come storming into the playoff picture even more. And that's going to put somebody like Dallas or San Antonio, who's had kind of a tenuous hold on things, maybe even Denver, who you've talked about has been very disappointing. If they've got a tenuous hold, you got to watch out for Golden State getting hot. And does New Orleans all of a sudden start riding an even like greater wave of Zion, where he just can't be stopped and they squeak into a playoff spot? It's going to be musical chairs in the West, just like it always is. And I didn't even mention the Memphis Grizzlies because I have no idea if they're good enough this year.
This first half has confused me so much with a bunch of these teams that I'm not sure really what else to expect. But there are three main questions that I'm excited to pay attention to. One, are the Knicks for real? Like, it does this have staying power? I'm definitely biased because of being a Knicks fan, but they're a half a game out of hosting playoff games right now, which is, I don't think anybody, even the most optimistic of Arky, did not really expect this to sort of be the case. So I'm interested in them. The team that's half a game ahead of them, Boston. My second interest is, how desperate are they? Like, how big of a move, how much movement, how much change are they willing to try to absorb?
And Marcus Smart is coming back. He will be playing this week. So is that just enough where the desperation changes because we realize, wow, Marcus Smart is really that valuable for them?
Because that's a team that also won 4 straight going into the break. So did that ship get righted, and adding that dog and Marcus Smart that loves to get underneath everybody's skin, is that going to be enough to sort of push them as far as they can go in the playoffs, and Danny Ainge can hold on to his 600 second round draft picks if that's what he wants to do? And my third one is Phoenix. Like, is Phoenix ready? Like, we've been, I think, excited about Phoenix for a couple of years because we saw the type of talent that they had. They just weren't quite there yet, and they got so hot in the bubble at the end last year, and they have been gangbusters in the first half of the season. And you just wonder, does the team like Phoenix, with now some added veteran leadership,
and that's huge,
do they have the legs to continue to be a top 2 or 3 seed, or hold on to home court for the playoffs? Because the Clippers will come calling. The Anthony Davis looks like he will be back at some point. The Lakers will come calling. I still think Denver's going to come calling. Portland's not going to be quiet into the night.
And they're getting Nurkic back within like 2 weeks is Portland. So watch out there.
So I'm very interested to see if Phoenix is at all what they were in the first half. I don't think they are, but I don't think they're far off from it. So I wonder how much.
If they can hold on to any home court advantage seed, any top 4 seed, this is a monumental success for them as a team. They don't have to be top 2. They can be the 4th seed, and they will have won a lot of respect if they can do that.
Yeah, let me see right now. There is a game and a half between them and the 4 seed of the Clippers. So they're 2.5 back of Utah, and the Clippers are 4 back. If they can hang on, yeah, because you look at that, I don't even want to project at this point because right now it would be them and I guess Portland technically if no other movement happened other than that.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be huge to see Phoenix hosting home court games in the playoffs. I mean, this franchise was basically left for dead, and like look what they're doing now. So it's really phenomenal because they've basically been hitting on all these guys like Ayton and Booker, and they've hit.
And Bridges has been really nice for them.
Bridges.
Cam Johnson has been pretty nice, yeah.
They have hit on these draft picks, and now it's time for them to come home to roost, and they're roosting pretty nicely. Got some nice little chickens there.
Mm-hmm. And bigger questions for me then is how good is Jokic? How good is Doncic? They're playing on flawed teams right now. But if you're going to be MVP candidates and you're going to be super duper stars, as good as those guys are, you elevate your team into somewhere that they couldn't go without you. And they've been good, but you have to make the playoffs if you're Dallas, and you've got to be in that 1st seed through 5th seed if you're Denver to call it a success. If you're the Nuggets and you are the 6th, 7th, or 8th seed, that is a disappointing season. At this point, it is a huge step backwards from where you were, and you can make all sorts of different excuses or whatever, but this is the mantle that comes now when you are a superstar player, and they've got to do it. And similarly, like Ken Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram, young guns who have a lot of great years ahead of them, can they will their team into the playoffs and mature kind of before our eyes, where we know they've got the talent, we know they've got a decent supporting cast in New Orleans. Can they make a run at this thing and make teams uncomfortable? I look at your New York question, and I sure hope they answer it as a yes, because otherwise Tom Thibodeau will get antsy. Having seen what he did in Minnesota, like he took 1 season of Zach LaVine and then shipped Zach LaVine out and Lauri Markkanen, the pick for him, and Chris Dunn to get Jimmy Butler. And then the Jimmy Butler thing didn't work after a season and a half, and Jimmy Butler was gone. And then Robert Covington was brought in, and then Robert Covington was let go for nothing. So, I mean, they gave up on Zach LaVine for essentially nothing. And you don't want that to happen to Julius Randle or Emmanuel Quickley. I mean, look what he did to Rivers. Austin Rivers was playing nicely at the beginning of the season, and all of a sudden it was, yeah, but I really want Derrick Rose instead. And now Austin Rivers never plays and is going to get traded. So I hope the answer is yes for the Knicks' sake, because you guys deserve that as fans and that sort of thing. But I hope too, because otherwise there are roster mistakes that are looming when Tom Thibodeau goes, yeah, but there's this veteran guy who might be over the hill, but he played for me once in 2006. We should get that guy instead,
Hey, 2006 not that long ago. It's the 2000s, right? It can't be that long ago.
Right.
Let me add on real quick just to your Denver point. Denver is 6 games back in the 6th spot, and they're 6 games above 500. Like, they're a good team. They won 4 in a row going into the break also, and it's tough. Like there are 10 teams that are 500 or better right now in the West, and there's only 6 of those in the East.
Toronto, Miami, Denver, Dallas, and San Antonio all got off to slow starts, and we were worried about them at the beginning of the season. And every single one of them has climbed their way back into the playoff picture, which is a testament to everything they do and the fact that a slow start doesn't have to haunt you, just like the fact that Orlando and Houston got off to very respectable starts, and they're now back at the bottom of the standings where they belong. So there's a shot, but you are right. It is tough sledding, and just getting into the playoffs in some cases might be enough, but for Denver, definitely not enough. That's not a successful year.
Yeah, everyone in the East is bunched, but a whole bunch of teams that are 500 or slightly below. In the West, a bunch of teams are bunched again, but those teams are much better when they're win-loss record right now. So there's a lot of basketball still to sort of iron out all of this, and that's what the second half is for, Joel Cordes.
Yeah, and coming up, I know on our next show, we'll talk maybe some predictions for the second half of the year, the awards and all that sort of thing. We'll get to revise our previous picks now that we know a little bit more, and looking forward to that. And like you said, the second half of the year is fun, not only because it's truncated, you get a lot more action in that short period of time, but this is the time period where I think the competitiveness really ramps up. You get those final moves at the trade deadline to round out rosters, and you got the playoffs then looming. So it's going to be great. Everybody, if you have been listening to us on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts, you can check out the video version on YouTube. Just search Basketball by Association or BbA. And of course, please like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Same thing if you're watching us on YouTube and you would rather have the audio version, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Please like, subscribe there. Tell your friends about it. Whether they like basketball or not, tell your friends.
Especially if they don't like it. Tell them.
Tell them Joel Cordes sent you.
That's right. Joel C. Cordes sent you. Joel, thanks for the time, brother.